Welcome back to Hannity. Disturbing reports out of London this week. Islamic extremists have taken to the streets, threatening business owners who sell alcohol, which is banned under Sharia law. The punishments for those who dare to violate the radical protesters' demands. According to a legal notice that group has been handing out, quote, the penalty for failing to cease drinking, serving or selling alcohol includes the curse of Allah, punishment by hellfire in the afterlife, and if found guilty in a Sharia court following the establishment of the upcoming Islamic State, you could be liable to 40 lashes publicly. Joining me now to explain his motivations is the leader of these out-of-control demonstrations, Anjem Chowdhury. Mr. Chowdhury, thanks for joining us this evening.
You're welcome.
So, as I understand it, you don't believe that alcohol should be sold in Great Britain because it's decadent. But I also understand that your family came to Great Britain from Pakistan. You've benefited from all the social welfare benefits there. You went to a subsidized school. You went on welfare yourself. And yet somehow you think the West is decadent? How does that work?
Actually, there's a lot of propaganda against us, so I'm not going to go into that. But let me just say that the final messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, and Islam makes clear, that we cannot live among the non-Muslims unless we enjoin good and forbid evil, and we invite them to Islam. Now, what you may not know is that this particular area of Brick Lane has become infamous recently as a kind of a den of iniquity, where there have been so many prostitutes and drug dealers, and people are waking up in the morning, with pool of vomit and urine on their own doorsteps. So we were basically going through and saying that even though the majority of these people are Muslims and they should not be drinking or selling alcohol, the mere fact that we are not living today under the Sharia does not mean that they can just sell alcohol and, it doesn't make any difference. No, rather they are sinful, and one day we will have the Sharia. So, they should look forward to this day when alcohol will be banned.
Hold on. This isn't Pakistan. This is Great Britain. They don't have Sharia law. They have 2,000 years of a Christian tradition, a liberal tradition, and your family shows up and you start telling the people of Great Britain how to live. How would you like it if a bunch of Britons moved over to Pakistan and started telling the people there how to live? I mean, it's a little out of hand, no?
Well, actually, in Pakistan, they don't implement the Sharia either. In fact, we have today 55 so-called Muslim countries who implement non-Islamic law, and many of them are much more brutal dictatorships than you find in the West. So if I was living in Pakistan, I would there as well be calling for the Sharia. And in fact, we've had campaigns where we have called the people in Pakistan to implement the Sharia. We believe that the whole world belongs to God, and therefore, wherever we are, we will propagate Islam. Now, I don't believe that Sharia is going to come in Britain tomorrow, but I think that surely, if you believe that something is good for mankind, then it's a very noble thing to invite other people to embrace it and to be part of it.
But you wouldn't go to Pakistan
this legal notice,
because troublemakers like you are thrown in prison in Pakistan. And by the way, you couldn't get the generous welfare benefits you get. And by the way, why are you on welfare?
No, it's not true. Well, I'll tell you.
Hold on. Will you renounce social services in Great Britain if it's so decadent? Will you say, I'm not going to take any more public funds from Great Britain?
I'm not on job seekers allowance. I'm a qualified lawyer. I teach Sharia law. There are a lot of trashy newspapers who try to tarnish our image. But I don't think that this can detract from the main message, which is that Muslims and non-Muslims can live side by side peacefully. That's what we're calling for. But we're saying that rather than under liberal democracy and capitalism, which has failed people socially, economically, judicially, we can have the Sharia, which is divine law. And we are inviting people to embrace it, to think about it. And for all intents and purposes, Islam is the fastest growing religion and ideology, in fact, in the whole of the Western Hemisphere, for your information, despite the attack against Islam or Muslims, as indeed your program does probably on a daily basis.
Wait, hold on. You're not inviting people to do anything. You're threatening them with 40 lashes and hellfire for drinking. That's not an invitation. That's a threat. Do you see the distinction?
Actually, the actual legal notice, if you read it all, is intended to provoke discussion, but it's talking about an Islamic legal notice, meaning that even if you get away with it in this life, in the hereafter, there will be severe punishment for those people who disobey Allah. And we were basically saying to those people in the area that the fact that they're making money from alcohol, does not detract from all of the crime which is associated with it. In Islam, alcohol is the mother of all evils. And for your information, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about gambling, homelessness, the elderly.
Okay.
We talk about all of the evils within society.
Well, hold on. You're always attacking the West and America and Great Britain. If you were trying this in Jordan or Saudi Arabia, you'd be hanging by your thumbs right now, because the Islamic rulers of those countries wouldn't put up with this for a second. You are taking advantage of the decency and the good manners of the West to be obnoxious. And by the way, you're a parasite taking welfare.
Well, on the welfare issue, I've already addressed that. But
you have taken welfare,
Jordan.
and you know it.
Jordan is implementing bear with me. Look, I've already explained to you my situation, but I don't think that your viewers want to hear more about the fallacy about welfare benefits. The point is that the Jordanian regime are a very brutal regime, no doubt. Even the Saudi Arabian and the Sudanese and, many other regimes. And in fact, what these regimes do, they implement parts of the penal code and parts of the social system, but they don't provide the economic and social justice of Islam. For your information, the Sharia as a law and order was implemented on this earth from the 7th century all the way until 1924,
right.
meaning over 1,300 years of the Sharia.
I just have time for one last question. I'm going to ask you a completely adult question, okay? I'm actually against drinking. I don't drink myself. So I think the goal, not so bad. Will you concede that your unwillingness to renounce violence makes your program repulsive to people in the West and decent people everywhere? Why don't you just say, you know what, we have our aims, we don't want people to drink, we're against whatever you're against, but we're not going to threaten people with violence. Why won't you say something that simple?
Well, we're not threatening anyone with
Of course
violence,
you are.
actually. The demonstration, well, if you just bear with me, the demonstration was very peaceful. The police said they're not going to take action. And in fact, Muslims, Jews and Christians live side by side in the heart of Europe for, over 800 years in Andalusia. So what we're saying is that there's an alternative to the oppression and the corruption of liberal democracy and capitalism. Communism is dead, capitalism is dying. Islam is the way for revival.
I wish you'd try this nonsense in an Islamic country. And by the way, I would stand up for your right not to be tortured, but tortured you would be. Mr. Chowdhury, thanks for joining us.
You're more than welcome.